This is your host, CPM, and you are now tuned in to LoopThatBish weekly podcast. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second episode of LoopThatBish Radio weekly podcast. And this Sunday, joining me again is BT.
What's up? What's up? Back again.
So, you guys, first I just want to say thank you for listening to last week's show. We got some really good feedback on that show. And you guys really showed me in the numbers that you guys, wanted to hear what we had to say. So today is no different. And we're going to start off today talking about Jay-Z speaking with the New York Times regarding his relationships, his album, and how that came to be. So what I wanted to talk about, particularly when he talked about his infidelity, I feel like he keeps talking around it. I mean, he's addressed it in the album, his interviews on Tidal with Rap Radar, and now this New York Times interview. But I just still feel like he's saying so much without saying anything. It's like he's...
So I can kind of agree with that. I mean, the main thing from my interpretation of listening or understanding between listening to the album and then kind of getting excerpts from the listen is that of the interview itself is that he's telling you, like, he's wanting to tell you what's going on or what happened, but it's almost like I'm not going to give an A to Z as to what occurred. And I think what makes it kind of ironic because it's not talked about is because if you look at it, and I don't want to say this as such because everything is usually a business move, but it was almost as though Lemonade was the reaction. I mean, Lemonade was the action, and 444 was the reaction, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so the whole... both of those projects pretty much... I mean, Beyonce gave it to everybody in the form of Lemonade, but I just feel like with Jay, I actually went back and watched that TMZ footage when Solange was in the elevator.
Right.
And, watching that now and knowing what we know as much as they want us to know, her reaction to whatever happened makes so much sense. And I feel like her reaction says more than what 444 said, and to some extent what Lemonade said.
Yeah, I can see that.
So my thing is, he's like, well, Beyonce was pretty much there for the whole thing, 444. And so they, she made Lemonade, he was there. He made his album, she was there.
Right.
But he's still not... I guess let me just jump to the...
You feel like you're wanting, I don't want to, I guess from a female's perspective, but just a person's perspective, if it's a gossip base, you want the dirt as to like what went.
Yeah, like so I remember, like I said, when that TMZ footage leaked, Rachel Roy, who is Dame Dash's ex-wife, I remember her page becoming private as soon as that footage came out.
Right.
And, like, the Beehive was attacking her and all this stuff was going on. So, at this point, it's like, if y'all are going to be, revealing, and they're very private people, let us know. Just say it. I mean, what could it do at this point but make the whole Beyonce Jay love interest thing even more of an interest? That's just how I feel.
So it's a couple of things. First and foremost, telling the story would be I want to say the easy way out of the bailout, but it's kind of like the immediate of, hey, this will kind of get everybody an understanding. But the other side of it, and I always talk about this off air, and I say this. I think I'm guilty of using this as the term, and this is kind of what you have to look at. There are 3 brands that are involved, and this is probably a reach in saying this, but it's 3. There's Jay-Z's personal brand, there's Beyonce's brand, and then of course there's the Beyonce and Jay-Z brand as a whole. And sharing the information may not tarnish or impact it that much in hindsight, but they may look at it as, in telling the story or telling the A to Z of what went down, how it could affect those quote-unquote supporters of Jay or supporters of Beyonce as to how they feel about, well, you stayed with her, you stayed with him through this, or whatever is speculated as being what occurred, what's speculated versus what actually happened. That's kind of like the biggest thing, at least how I'm looking at it. And I could be wrong, but that's just kind of the first thing that comes to mind in the story kind of being told and played out.
Okay, yeah, so I think I agree. That was a good kind of breakdown. There are 3 brands involved, and you're right. They're separate brands, and then they're brands together. And I know we're never going to get the full story. We're never going to know who, Becky with the good hair was.
Right.
But I feel like, if you're going to say this much, because to me, when Lemonade came out, everybody was still like, is she really talking about Jay? At some point, people were like, is she talking about her mother? So when Jay kind of confirmed that Lemonade was about him, I feel like they burst the bubble on this perfect relationship that honestly everybody wanted that relationship.
Yeah.
So now I feel gypped. Now I feel like this is something for like the last 14, 15 years people have aspired to have, and now that there's cracks in this relationship, it's like, well, I want to know what happened. I mean, I feel invested.
Yeah.
It's like somebody when they get on Facebook and they post about their love life, and then all of a sudden they break up and you don't hear nothing from them again. It's like, no, we invested in this relationship. Like, let us know why. Like, now why are you silent? We need to know. And that's all. It's petty, but that's how I feel.
Understood.
So I think, good luck to them. I'm sure they're going to be more than fine. I was on Instagram the other day after that interview came out, and basically people were like, well, she's so successful, she's so beautiful, why would she stay with him? And I asked myself that question because I really don't know if they have a prenup or not.
Right. It's a lot of red tape that's not really public. And I mean, just like you said earlier, that's what a lot of people who are giving their thoughts and their input about the whole situation is. They're a private couple. By nature, they do things private. Now, of course, having kids and doing all that was like extracurricular. I won't get into that. Because anyone who knows, so before we continue, because I always like to address this elephant of mine, I share a birthday with Beyonce. A lot of people would assume and look at it like, oh, you have her, y'all share a birthday, so you're a big fan. I have her music, but big fan, it's kind of like an in-between. Usually it's kind of swerved towards no. But it's on the same token of some things that she does, you don't have to go about doing it, but that's her. Mm-hmm. So I can't knock her for being who she is and what she does or what they do. That being said, looking at their relationship and their process now, I mean, if he decides, if she wants to decide to leave, I mean, it's not like, it would be a gift and a curse, not to use that reference, but just kind of what it is. Like, it's, hey, if she leaves him, then of course everyone's like, oh, the marriage, just like you were talking about, the marriage that was to live by and live through isn't as real as it is, and I don't think it's a such thing as love. But it's also to give people a reality that everyone's acceptance is different. But to spin off of that, if things happen in your relationship, just like anybody else or like anything else. You work at it and you address it and act like it exists instead of saying I'm not going to acknowledge what's going on. And that's what a lot of people do wrong sometimes. And I think with them, they're acknowledging it, and it was made public, and it may not have been made public to the preference of everyone, but it was made public.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. It's just, we live in a time where everything is overshared, and, everybody's relationship is on TV or Instagram, so...
Yeah.
I feel like, they found a balance. They got 2 kids in addition to all this stuff that's been going on. So, of course, they'll be more than fine.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, another thing going on this past week was Joyner Lucas dropped this song and video called I'm Not Racist.
Right.
And I have sort of I wouldn't say a personal connection, but he was featured on the 2015 BT Cypher,
okay.
which is where he found his quote-unquote fame. And at the time, my ex-boyfriend, gotta put the emphasis on ex, was featured on the 2015 BET Awards with him. Okay, so he ended up being moved to another cypher, which was televised, and actually the cypher that he originally was in ended up being televised as well. So from that, he's grown an audience, got a respectable little career from it.
Okay,
and he dropped this song to address what's going on in the country right now. Now, at first, I didn't really pay much attention to it because I don't particularly listen to his music.
Yeah.
I just know, who he is. But I watched the video, and I was like, this is what's needed right now. And when I say needed, it's not that it wasn't needed before, but I feel like in the era of mumble rap, in the era of people, basically being on Twitter and Instagram, key thumbing their, disdain or whatever, for him to actually make a video and to have it from the point of view of the racist, to me was dope.
Yeah.
And the guy that's in the video, I feel like I've seen him before. I just don't know where.
Yeah,
but
I can't think of it either.
Yeah. And maybe I'm doing what I shouldn't be doing, and basically everybody look like, okay. I don't know, but anyway. So he has on this Make America Great Again hat, and he's saying the lyrics that Joyner said in the song, but Joyner makes his point of view from the racist. Even though it's called I'm Not Racist, it's from the point of view of the racist.
Yeah. So
this guy, is saying the lyrics word for word. And people, they're like, oh, this video is so controversial. Some people are like, it's so great. I mean, it's all those things. I don't think it's controversial. I think that what we allowed to happen was controversial. And that is letting someone steal an election, get into office, and continue to say the things that he said for the last 2 years. To me, that's more controversial than this video.
Okay, yeah. So, a couple of things. We're looking at the video, and I think this is what was done wrong with this video was done wrong with, and this is such a random spinoff, but it's a similar situation. It's similar to what happened with the Dove commercial a couple of months ago, where people saw one part of the story, but they didn't see they saw what they saw, but they didn't see what Dove was actually presenting in the video or in their animation or whatever. And this video is a similar situation. Is we're looking at what a white male is saying, but it's the same artist who's giving it from a white perspective. But he's talking to a black man and getting him to understand the white side's point of view. Like it's a win and a loss in a sense, because, for instance, the N-word is always had its battle of misinterpretation as far as acceptable as terms of endearment, hatred or anger towards someone else, ignorant. It has so many references and meanings that it's not going to be acknowledged or considered to be universal. However, it's almost as though if one black person says it to another, we accept it, we move on because, hey, it's cool. But then it's the turnaround of, if a white person says it to a black male, or it's stated in a black reference, then he's racist. And it's every bit of, like, that was one thing that I saw in the video. Both sides also made a point in addressing the Eminem rap, which, I mean, we've always known Eminem to be a rapper, so that's not, or a freestylist, or however you want to term it, with doing the cipher. But it also was just him, it was just, they both were giving their points of view of how they looked at it. Referring to 45, because I don't call him by name, he's a different breed. And I think what's ironic about what's going on with this past election that a lot of people don't want to take into account is you can put someone in a position, but when they're overwhelmed or surprised by the position, they don't know what to do when put in that position. And that's basically what we saw and what we're seeing now. There's little to no personal relations with people, and there's not going to be, strictly because he's in a different tax bracket. That's just how you gotta look at it. And I know that's very way off course with the actual topic as far as like the video, and I know we're looking at it solely from one side, but I mean, as far as me personally being a black male and looking at that story, looking at that video, I know for me, I always hear it and go through it as far as profiling, and even down to, if you drive somewhere, the minute you see a cop, you can be going at a decent speed, but if you feel like, oh, I'm a couple of miles over, okay, is this cop gonna pull out and pull me over? Like, do I need to go through, what am I gonna have to deal with? It's just those factors come into play. So all of those topics and situations were literally addressed in like a 6-minute video for this story.
Yeah, so I definitely agree. And the conversation is about 45 because he has set the tone and made his followers feel this way. And not even feel this way. I think they felt this way for a long time. It's just now they feel like they have a voice. And their voice won't be silenced because they have someone representing them.
Right.
And you know what? I feel the same way because when I drive, and sometimes when I see a cop, I'm like, you know what? I'll put my cruise control on. And it's that bad that I will put it on to 65 just so I won't have the possibility of getting pulled over.
Exactly.
And that's sad. And so, as a black woman, I'm not a black man, but I'm a black woman, and they will shoot you dead in front of me and not think twice about it.
Yeah.
So I have to live with that reality, and I also have a child, and if I'm in a car, I have to think about, if I get pulled over, what's the outcome going to be?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's overreacting because we've seen it on tape,
Yeah. Yeah, I had someone give that exact same story where they were worried, like, a cop pulled them over, and it was like they literally put their hands up just because of what they've experienced, what we experience and what we see on TV. And so, with going through that, it was basically the cop was telling her, like, you don't have to do all that. It's not that serious. So after, they kind of gave her assurance, then she was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put my hand, like, she was giving like play-by-play, step-by-step, and it was like, you watched a lot of television, and I understand that.
Yeah.
It's the reality of it. So, I get all factors of it, but I think will we come a long way. We kind of feel like it's not going anywhere, but we always have room to grow, and there's always room left to spare to work on more and improve as a race and as a human race, or however you want to coin it.
Yeah, so I think that was, I'm glad you said that, because towards the end of the video, they actually, him and the black guy that he's talking to, they actually embrace at the end. And I just feel like, there's a lot of people that can listen to an opinion and not be affected by it, and I think we need to get to that point as people. We need to be able to hear why someone feels the way they feel and be able to embrace each other, not only mentally, but physically, and try to get to the root of the problem. And I feel like that's what that video was trying to do. And I also feel like his flow was very similar to Eminem. I don't know if that was on purpose, but when I first heard it, I was like, this sounds like Eminem. Now, what I will say is, I feel like if Eminem would have did that song, people would instantly be saying that's genius, and I think they would listen a little bit harder than what they're listening right now.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what needs to happen. Because I think my son, who's another rapper, he did a response video to Joyner Lucas. And I think what would be dope is if Eminem did a response video.
Right, yeah.
I think that would be brilliant. Because when he did the BET Awards, people listened. And it's like, damn, it took a white rapper for y'all to realize that it was, and it was that bad. Like, no, we've been telling you, we've been showing you for a couple years now. So that's all.
Yeah, I'm with that. I mean, it shouldn't have to go that route, but that's the mindset and the mentality that we're working for, against, or whatever.
Yeah, man. It's like 2017. We got what? What's today? The 3rd. We have 28 more days in this year.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like, have we progressed?
I mean, everyone's definition of progression is different. I think it's tough because sometimes you're put in a position of the mindset of you have to kind of let pieces kind of lie where they may and learn, according to them. But will it be 100%? No. I'm not. I can't place the expectation of 100% towards where we are, where we're going, what we're saying, because it's gonna be constant motion. There's gonna be times when we progress, then between killings and police brutality and things of that nature, racial profiling, it's still gonna be that uphill battle. So whether we can look or expect that progression to happen anytime soon, it's a matter of time. It's going to come with time. We may never cross that bridge too. So I mean, I think as people, we have to also be willing to acknowledge that.
Right. So for 2018, what are some personal goals for yourself that you have?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. So what I'm doing this year, and this is this month actually, I'll tell a couple of things that I'm working on because I basically was given a challenge called Surrender December Surrender, however you want to term it, where basically each day I put a thing that I'm surrendering to work on or to progress towards or work on or just handle just going into the new year. Biggest factors for me right now is I would like to travel more. Like I'm looking to try to move to California. Well, not move, but take a trip to Cali. I've looked at the thought of, I guess I've personally realized that I've gone about love like I've approached love completely wrong, and I can admit that. So now it's like this coming year, I want to just kind of put myself in that mingling mindset of if I want to meet people or do things and hang out, it comes naturally and it happens, and it's not like, okay, let me hit somebody on Facebook or let me send somebody a instant message on, a DM on Instagram. Those ways aren't really gonna do it or gonna work. The third thing I've done so far is I put one about time and just self-care, because I've put me last, and because of me putting myself last, I'm trying to like help and do everything for everybody else, and it's just not help. And then just treat my time like it's important. Most important, and to answer the main factor of it, as far as like what to work on and what I really am looking to do is goals for next year, is I want to enhance my brand, like not just with my podcast, not just with my stream, not just with me as a person. Like, I just want to improve and work on life as a whole and not cut any corners. That's kind of like the main, most important thing that I'm looking at. But obviously, I'm not going to put that to the end of the year. So that's kind of like an overall as to what I'm working towards and what I would like to see achieved. It's other things that I have, like surrendering, but if you follow me, if I mentioned, I probably plugged the other one, but Brights 82, if you want to check out any the daily thoughts that I share for Instagram, because I do get into my little vent and rant sessions. So
right, I feel you. So you touched on some things, for myself personally that I'm working on now, and that that's self-care and time to yourself.
Yeah.
And especially as a mother, I think this is important, because once you become a mom, everything is centered around this little person in your life.
Yeah.
And I know I personally watched it with my mom. Like, she never really, unless she did it in private, she never really took time for herself. And I'm at the point now where it's like, you can't take care of anybody else unless you take care of yourself. And kids are a lot of work. Even if you weren't a mother, you still need to take care of yourself. But if you are just constantly exhausting yourself, going to work every day, taking care of this little person, and still trying to fulfill your goals and, your dreams, it's tiring.
Yeah.
And 2017 is really where I feel like I just kept hitting my head on a wall. Like, I was like, I'm just so tired. Why am I always so tired? And I got to the point where it's like, I got to start taking care of me.
Yeah.
Especially being a single mom, because it's like, you don't have that extra person to pick up the slack. You just don't. So I'm really focused on getting my health together. I'm really focused on eating better. So I'm just into lifestyle changes at this point.
So that's good. That's and that's those, like, it's relevant and important to do that. And it's the added factor to it, and this is for you and this for anybody that's listening. So I know this is like a random segue, but being accountable, like making yourself accountable and putting yourself in a position of doing it, that's great. That's fine. That's perfect. But also having others around to like call you out on your bluff, or call you on your stuff if you're doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. That helps out, and that goes even further in the process too. So I'm giving you, I'm always the positive giving guy anyway. Like, hey, I want to see people be positive and succeed. That's just me. But then I also look at it as like, if you're really persistent and want to do it and you want to be called out, like, I don't mind, because I look for the same in return. So if it's something, if those are things you're working towards, do it.
Yeah, and you're the person that, and it's so random when I do it, but if I need to ask you a question, or I just need advice, even getting to this podcast,
right.
You're the person that I'll hit up. And I don't, like I said, it's not intentional and it's not forced. It just is what it is at this point.
Right.
So I want to let everybody know that pretty much I think we're going to be doing this Sundays. Is that where we're going with this?
As far as I can see now, yeah. My schedule will switch up for the new year, but as of right now, yeah, it should be Sundays will be my go-to, and I'll definitely look forward to being on and coming in and giving my 2 cents. I'll be more prepared since I know this is like the interview. I know the Jay-Z interview was like a new one because I was like, I knew about it, but I didn't really, because I heard snippets and excerpts coming from it, but didn't really see the whole thing. So
yeah, I mean, life happens. Hey,
you got a lot in.
Right. So this is what I want you guys to do. You guys can catch me every Friday on Spreaker, on iHeartRadio, iTunes, pretty much wherever there's music that's a streaming platform, minus Spotify, Tidal. You can catch me, LoopThatBish Radio. You can follow me on IG at LoopThatBish Radio and at Twitter at just LoopThatBish. And you can also find me at Facebook, LoopThatBish Radio. BT, want to throw your handles out?
Yeah, hopefully it don't take long. Personal info, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, WordPress. Yeah, Bright82. I'm still blogging, believe it or not. I have a great blog I'm going to work on because a lot of people have asked why am I not married. Might make a few people upset as to why. But yeah, Bright82, if you look for me, if you literally look for Bright82 on Google, you'll find every single social media for personal use. For the podcast, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Music. I don't know if the link is still working because people haven't told me or confirmed if it has. Overcast, I am on there. If anyone, before I say this, because I think people need to be made aware, because this is a podcast lesson for me. If you are in the assumption of I don't have an iPhone and I can't listen to podcasts, that is not true. You can actually go to Overcast and download the app, and you can listen to podcasts from anybody who has done podcasting, between Joe Budden, between LoopThatBish, between the Past Podcasts, which is my other personal page. If you're following on Spreaker.com/Brate Podcast, that's where I'll be recording. Looking to upload my episode tonight. Hopefully we'll have it done by midnight if I'm lucky. But any of my personal information, sorry for that snap. Got the cat here trying to sneak food. If you're wanting to follow on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, Past Podcasts, and you always know the picture because I'm holding the microphone like I'm on a mission and just chilling. But definitely check us out. This is, I'm at first when doing this, it was just something to kind of like I told CPM before. Like at first, podcast was I'm gonna do it and sit down and do a show here and there. Now it's consumed my life. Like I literally have wallpapers of microphones and headphones everywhere, so people get kind of annoyed, and it's just what I am and what I do. So if it's anything you're trying to do with podcasting, I know I'm plugging for a long period of time, but if it's anything you're trying to do for podcasting, you really are like dedicated to doing it, I'll tell you what I did. I'll tell you things that may work for you that I'm not doing. I'm going to be as honest as I can. But if you're not consistent in what you're doing, then I'm not going to stick with you on what you're doing. And my codes will vouch for that. But yeah, that's everything. Definitely check me out. I'm just up and coming. That's all I can tell you.
Well, we want to thank you guys for listening this Sunday afternoon. We hope that you guys have a great and prosperous week, and we'll see you next time.
Catch you on the flip side.
Be safe, everybody.